Hello, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And we have had quite a good Olympics this year where Pakistan is concerned. We especially got the solitary gold medal won by Arshad Nadeem. And let's make that clear, first of all. Despite all the antics that the government tried to play in order to take credit, nobody can take credit for this man's efforts and his achievements. Okay, he was all on his own. Everybody is a witness to that. In fact, he couldn't even afford his tools needed to practice the sport, and he literally had to ask for help. And people around him, they helped him by giving him money so that he could buy a new equipment in order to practice before going to the Olympics. Where was the government then? Okay, the government is constantly trying to say that, oh, they were somehow one way or the other behind him. They were never there for him. In fact, if anything, there was the only two sources of some sort of help that or support it seems that he got was, one is VABDA, which is the water and power supply company, which is basically the water and electricity supply company of Pakistan. And then the second support that he had was from Ali Tareen, the son of Jahangir Tareen, former PTI member. Now keep that in mind, that even then, neither VABDA nor Ali Tareen can even take credit for the boy's achievements, or the man's achievements actually, because, and that is why they didn't even try to, because let me tell you one thing. It doesn't matter who supports you. If you do not have the skills, you cannot go far. And as Arshad Nadeem is a testament to the fact, if you do have skills, without any help, you can go far, as long as nobody impedes or nobody interferes with your work. That is also a big deal, because as we know in our society, especially in our country, you will have no one there to actually help you reach your goal, but you will have a lot of people who actively work to stop you from achieving your goal. So he was very lucky in that way, that in the small village that he belongs to, the people of his village were sincere towards him. His family was sincere towards him. Fine, most of them were so poor they couldn't really help him, but they supported him. They gave him moral support. They were there for him. They were there for him even when he won and came. They were in full preparation to cheer for him, to celebrate. They specifically gathered together to watch him play in the Olympics So I think that was a very lovely, very sincere form of support for him. His parents are his biggest support. His family, his people are his biggest support. Apart from that, if anybody tries to take any credit whatsoever, they're just liars, and they should be ashamed of themselves, really. The government should be ashamed of themselves, because they were not there when he needed help, but they are here to claim credit for his medals, which is not even childish, it is downright shameless. In fact, so many players, sportsmen and women came forward many times, but it's weird how it never actually reached international media or even national media to that large scale. Many of them have come forward saying that this government has been responsible for causing them a lot of problems, because this government and its members have always, even when Maryam Nawaz and her family, when they were just in the provincial government capacity, even then. So this is a decades old complaint, you can say. This is something that we've all known. This is why we're now completely peed off at their shamelessness, because time and again they have done this. They would, just for photo shoot reason, just to plaster their faces on the camera, they would do these conferences and ceremonies where they're showing that they're paying players, or that they're going to give financial support to players and whatever. As soon as the camera wraps up, they take that money back. They take all their financial support back on the spot. So, this is how they've been doing. And many players have complained. They've come forward complaining that they promised a lot of help, but they were never there. They never gave help, neither financial nor otherwise. So you have your answer right there. In Pakistan, if any politician is involved, if any, especially if this family, this political family, and Zardari's family and the army, if they are involved in any sports, you can rest assured that that sports is going to be politicized and you will never get a clear winner. The reason why we have not won a cricket match in ages, I'm talking about World Cup and all, is because politics has come into cricket. India's government brought politics into cricket. Australia's government benefited Indian government. British government again benefited. Because of that, when you politicized cricket, it lost its charm. It lost its value in the eyes of anybody like, a person like me. I stopped watching sports that get politicized. So the fact that you're now forcing cricketers for political reasons to lose a match, it's no longer a point of rigging a match for financial gain or for personal benefit. It's now completely a national thing now, where the government makes deals with other governments and then they force the cricketers and the cricket teams to lose. Now, as you can see, our women's cricket team is doing really well. Why? Because the government is not interested. It's not politicized. Foreign governments are also not interested enough. So there are no high bets. There's no betting game. There's no gambling. So the stakes are not high. Similarly, we have snooker champions. We have squash champions. We have tennis champions. Now we have this track and field champion. So we've got these champions because they were not on the government's radar. They were not part of any political game. So that is actually, so as you can see, that it actually benefited them in the long run. It's better to be unknown and to win your matches fair and square rather than to become part of a political tool and be used and abused. So I prefer games that have nothing to do with politics because those are real games. That's what sports is all about. We talk about sportsmanship, and yet the British and the Australians and the Indians are the ones that actually ruined sportsmanship. Obviously, America, one doesn't even need to talk about America because in America, nothing is ever fair and square when it comes to these things, as we know now. So yeah, don't care about that anymore. But the fact that, it's the British who are always talking about sportsmanship and, fair play. But I'm sorry, but the British have now proved themselves to have nothing to do with sportsmanship. They have nothing to do with fair play. They are all about politicizing and using and abusing sports for their own political gain. So moving on to that now, we can see that at the moment the whole country is pretty peed off. I think Hasina Wajid, people like Hasina Wajid, people like Nawaz Sharif's family, Hasina Wajid's family, I think they need to be made examples of, so that for future generations and for the current generation, they really need to be made an example out of in order to teach this bitter lesson that nobody should dare do the things that they have done, even if they have foreign entities, supporting them or dictating them or paying them to do this. So Hasina Wajid was also basically working with a foreign entity, India, and India is obviously working with Israel and America. So you can see the whole chain there. In Pakistan also, you've got Zardari, you've got the army, you've got Nawaz Sharif and family. They are again slaves to America, and then so they are obliged to work with India and America and Israel against Pakistan. So treason is something that is always punished by death. And the fact that it's always the traitors that get away is what makes it very ironic. The patriots get killed or they kill themselves, but you don't see traitors getting killed. Most times they just run away and then they take asylum. Although, as you can see with the Hasina Wajid, the thing that I've always been talking about, how the US and the UK will use you, abuse you, and then throw you under the bus. That's exactly what they're doing with Hasina Wajid. Now suddenly they've forgotten that they were allies of Hasina Wajid, that they worked with India to ensure that she stayed put in Bangladesh so that they could have control over Bangladesh, its market, and basically have a proxy occupation of Bangladesh. And now that the Al Jazeera news and the other news are trying to, promote that false narrative that America, UK, and India are working on, stating that now Bangladesh, there are people getting killed, Hindus are being targeted, this and that. We all know that it's a false narrative because, first of all, the Hindu community itself came forward and said that these are lies being spread. We're not being targeted. Our temples are intact. Everything is intact. And then when they saw that the people were not getting convinced and that the minorities themselves were coming forward saying that no, there's no such thing going on, then they decided to go and get down to it for real. So they decided to go and, you know, terrorize the people. So there have been terrorist activities recently in Bangladesh, which we can all see that India and Hasina Wajid obviously are in cahoots. They're doing this. As I said before, that, the Bangladeshi people should now be even more vigilant because when we, the Pakistanis, when we toppled the illegitimate government and we got the elections done and we made Imran Khan prime minister, as you can see, America and the American minions, the traitors within Pakistan, they worked together to topple Imran Khan and to put once again, their illegitimate government in place. So whenever you topple an illegitimate government or a treacherous government, and then you put the person that you want, then you need to be extra vigilant because America will always come back. The UK will always come back because, as I said before, this is their decades-old project that they cannot let go of their colonies. So the same thing, the fact that they're using India as their lapdog, as their hunting dog, and India is so stupid, I'll say again, that it thinks that, it will be that it's partners of these it's allies and partners of these countries. It's not, because at the end, once the deed is done, they'll come after India. But here we are now. So India is now working with America and the UK to wreak havoc in the region, within the whole Asian region. And that is why India is the most disliked country in Asia. None of its neighboring countries like India. And that is a fact. Go to Nepal, go to Myanmar. In fact, the whole Rohingya Muslim problem that is going on in Myanmar is basically, it's not exactly, in their minds, they're not really targeting Muslims. In their minds, they're targeting Indians. So they have this age-old hatred with India that they have failed to differentiate between, their Muslim community and India to such an extent they're so blinded by hate that they're targeting them. So if you go to the crux of the matter, it's their hatred for Indians. So at the same time, you've got, Bhutan, which also tries to steer clear of India and its politics. Then you've got Afghanistan, which is constantly being interfered by with India. India is basically doing to Afghanistan what it did to Bangladesh, except that in Bangladesh, they settled their own people. But in Afghanistan, every now and then something happens and it upsets the apple cart. And the Afghanis, like the Bangladeshis and like any others, whenever something happens, then they prefer to come running to Pakistan instead of going to India. That's another problem. And this is why, as we know, Pakistan actually has the largest, at least until recently, it has had the largest number of illegal immigrants, legal and illegal immigrants all put together in the world. So whenever there is an upset situation in the region, people start flooding to Pakistan, at least until recently. So now, obviously, I think people should know better than to come running to Pakistan. Although people from Afghanistan still come running to Pakistan for some odd reason, they always seem to find Pakistan to be their best source of survival. And so we have now this whole problem here that India is the enemy of the region. India is causing chaos within the region. And why? Because it's, working on some pledge or promise that can never come true, really, with the British and the Americans. And that is why you have China, you have Russia. In fact, Russia and India may be allies, but at the end of the day, Russia also needs to look at its borders. So we have China, and then we have Nepal, we have Bhutan, we have Malaysia, Indonesia. Malaysia and Indonesia are two countries that India cannot afford to upset or to interfere with. So America usually tries to do that directly, and America's efforts have been so beautifully foiled each time that they don't even dare talk about it. So, because Indonesia and Malaysia are the two largest Muslim countries in the world, not only that, they are huge, geographically speaking, as well, and they are very, very quietly powerful. So they like to be quiet, but that does not mean you can mess with them. As America has learned very, very bitterly and very, very silently, America has been quelled and foiled by the two countries. So we have that going on. Keeping all of that in mind, when you look at the whole mess that we're in, just because the Western countries are once again itching for a war so that they could steal resources, once again recolonize, you know, you can rest assured that the American public and the British public are once again being brainwashed by false narratives. For example, whatever is going on in Britain is a testament to the fact that the British government is creating a story, that's creating a narrative, so that when the British government once again works with the American government to go to war, to attack other countries, the British people would not protest. They would support their government. It's like how they lied to them before attacking Iraq, if you remember. And then at the end, now the British people suddenly decided to wake up. And now they listen. It's very convenient for you brainwashed people to wake up after the fact. But the damage that is done, you can't even pay for it. So this is also getting very old. It's getting very old that the Western public always seems to wake up after the fact, after the damage is done. And then they start issuing apologies. It doesn't work like that. You did that with Vietnam, you did that with Iraq, you did that with you still have to do that with Syria and Lebanon. We're waiting for that. And for Egypt, you haven't fully apologized for that. And then you're doing that with Palestine till date. You've done jack shit, really. You've been brainwashed for so long, and then suddenly you've woken up after the damage is done once again. So you did that with Bosnia, by the way, and it was your own government, the American government, the British government. They were first working with the Serbs to commit genocide, and then suddenly when you woke up after the damage was done, then they had to, throw their allies under the bus, which is what they're always doing. Now they're throwing Hasina Wajid under the bus. Soon they'll be throwing, in fact, they are trying to throw their own Pakistani allies, the army chief, the illegitimate government in Pakistan, they're literally working under the dictation of the Americans. And yet the Americans are throwing them under the bus when it came to this whole Iran BS that the American government tried to create a narrative out of. So the British people once again being used as tools, the fools being brainwashed, the sheep, by their own government. This will lead to a huge damage to Britain yet again. And all I can say at this point is they probably will deserve it when it happens, because if you cannot learn from your history, and if you keep on very conveniently waking up after the fact, then I'm sorry, but there's no help. There's no point even in helping you. You really do deserve getting fooled. It's like, fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, shame on me. It's that. And how many times have you guys been fooled by your government? Seriously. I mean, how stupid can a mass, of people be? Seriously. How stupid can such a vast majority of people be? Now, moving on, let's come back to Pakistan. Once again, Pakistanis, please stop, erupting like shattered volcanoes left, right, and center, and do a proper job of it. We need to do a massive national scale protest. So that 13th August call, for God's sake, do not try to turn it into a rally. This should be a national protest, a proper protest. Remember the protests that we did day and night, which America tried very hard that the international media should not highlight. So America was too busy highlighting Hong Kong's protests because that actually coincided with the American national interests. And although actually it was Pakistan that started that wave, and Hong Kong followed suit. So it was a coincidence, maybe, or it was, people getting inspired by each other, whatever. But the point is, Pakistan and Hong Kong were at the same time protesting day and night and day and night to get the results that we wanted. But America and India and their allies preferred to highlight Hong Kong. And people only found out about Pakistan through, social media, that Pakistan was creating a wave, and that Pakistan was making history by doing a national scale protest, and where they were doing sit-ins day in and day out, all through the night, and that without a break, until we got what we wanted. But as I said, when you get what you wanted, you have to remain vigilant. You have to know that there are now going to be obstacles that are going to be larger than the ones before, that there are landmines that will be placed before you even get to the point you are at, in order to remove you from that point. And that is exactly what happened. So the Bangladeshis need to be very, very careful, because, there will be more and more obstacles. There will be more and more so-called reactions from their enemies, who will try to repossess and recontrol this whole situation and the whole country. So now, this is all I have to say, and I hope people actually can get to understand what exactly is going on. And this is me signing out for the Hafiz.